Our students are the future. How we advance innovation and impact and approach equity in their classrooms will determine how we thrive as a world community. The status quo just won't cut it. That's why we're here to break the grade. Hello, breakers and difference makers. I'm Josh Chernikoff, host of How I Broke That. I'm a two-time entrepreneur in the education space, and I've successfully exited both of those companies. I've experienced my fair share of breaks in my life, and I'm here to bring my signature approach to my new show, Breaking the Grade. I'm embarking on this special journey alongside my good friend and mentor, John Gamba, Director of Innovative Programs and Entrepreneur in Residence at Penn GSE. In our podcast, you'll hear from emerging business owners in the education space who are working to transform education as we know it. Tune in as we hear about industry trends, unique principles and practices, and the attempts that have and haven't worked for our grade-breaking guests. So fellow entrepreneurs and educators, what do you think? Are you ready to take a hammer to the education space and break the grade? Welcome to another edition of Breaking the Grade. This is another great interview, and I know you guys love these interviews, and you're going to love Michael Campbell. Really, everybody does in the education space. I was at ASU GSV last April with Michael. You can't walk around with this guy without everybody coming up and saying hi and giving him a nice big hug. He's the president of Advancing Global EDU and a longtime leader in education. He has helped and helps companies of all sizes expand their reach in schools, school districts, and even universities. Mike started, cool story, as a teacher and went on to build a career in publishing and then ed tech. That gives him a very unique perspective as he's working with companies in education. And that's why this conversation matters for every education founder. We unpack when your company is truly ready to hire its first salesperson, how to leverage university trust and to get that big buyer you're looking for, and why courage and commitment is essential to any business, especially in education, when you're trying to break through. And that's what many of you breakers are trying to do. You're building an education company, and Michael Campbell is going to give you some great advice in this show. Enjoy it. Welcome to Breaking the Grade. Welcome to a live conference edition of Breaking the Grade. Michael Campbell is joining us. Michael, I'll let you take the mic here and describe our studio for today here at ASU GSV.
Well, it is about 75 degrees and the sun is shining and nothing but blue skies here, right on the water here. It's great.
Which both you and I are fortunate enough to get to spend some time in Mexico. So while this weather is wonderful, these are the days that you and I get to have lots. Yeah, it's wonderful. It's wonderful weather. And it's wonderful to be here at ASU GSV. This is a conference. I took a year off. I'm glad I took a year off because I didn't miss it, but I got refreshed. And so back here at ASU GSV, and talk about your business, please, for our audience, which is mainly educators and founders and CEOs in the education space. What your business is and what you're doing here at ASU GSV.
So I'm the president of Advancing Global EDU, and we've been around for about 7 years now. And what we do is we really try to help small to mid-size education service companies increase their footprint in the education industry, whether that be schools, school districts, or even universities, community colleges.
And so now that we understand what your business is, talk to me about just your background. You know, you don't have to take us back to childbirth, but, you know, get us going.
I started out as a teacher, And I taught high school in Louisiana, and which, if you've been to Louisiana, then you know that they're not ranked as the top education state in the country. But I will say that they're making strides there. So, but that's my impetus for this. I love learning. I love teaching. And, as a result, when a publisher came to me and talked to me about working for them, McGraw-Hill, I took that opportunity. And ever since then, I've been in educational publishing. Then I pivoted to technology and have been in that sector ever since.
I want to revisit that, because that's not an unfamiliar story of somebody leaving the classroom to go work for a company in education, potentially a for-profit. Obviously, McGraw is a very for-profit. How did you make that transition? And I would tell you that most of the time when people make that transition, it's not a successful one.
I agree. I think one of the key things that I had a little bit different background. I have a business background. And so when I started teaching in Louisiana, the superintendent knew my folks and told them that I have a degree in business, and he said I can get Mike certified, and so he did. So the first semester, I was taking some courses and having people sit in my class, watching me teach. So I have a little bit different background, and many states have that program now where people transition from being an engineer to teaching science, those kinds of things. And I think those people are really successful in our business because they do understand both sides of the equation. And it's not, I'm thankful that every day that I get paid to do what I get paid to do, because not only am I getting a salary and working in education, I'm helping kids learn to read, do math, all those kinds of things. I'm helping teachers teach better. And so I think that's what really makes it different, is that having seen both sides of the equation.
Okay, so let's get a little value here for our audience. A lot of times, I'm sure you have this, when our founders are ready to go out and hire their first salesperson, whether they're ready or not, they'll think, I'm just going to go out and hire a teacher. How do you do that successfully? Unless you find you.
Yeah, I think, you do have to look at somebody who has that profile of wanting to solve problems, wanting to get, who has that fire of success in their blood, just hiring a teacher who's been a great teacher does not give you the impetus to be a successful salesperson, to be a successful venture person, an entrepreneur. And so I think you have to have that fire of succession in you, that you're constantly trying to succeed. And you got to ask those questions around that. You got to ask, when was the last time, you met your numbers? When was the last time that you got 5 out of 15 kids that you teach to the next level? And if they can't figure that out, then they may be a great teacher, but they may not be a great salesperson for you.
Let's talk about when, in your mind, when is a company ready to hire that first salesperson?
I think, like you mentioned, a lot of companies want to immediately rush out and hire somebody. That's not to your advantage to do that. If you learn from the industry, learn from your customers, it's going to be a while. So, use that ability to get knowledge from people in the industry, some freelancers, from distributors, whatever the case may be, that can get you the information and be a better entrepreneur, be a better company. That, to me, is what you need to do first. Get as much information on the market before you start hiring people to do that for you.
I appreciate that and agree with that. We have been at this conference. I don't know, I was ballparking during my coaching this morning that, I don't know, maybe I met 30 people a day. So let's say I've met 100 people. And I've taken nuggets from many of them. And in our conversation, and obviously we've known each other, but in our conversation, one of the nuggets that I took was this conversation that we had about a client of yours that was doing some research with Johns Hopkins. And that you also mentioned that you have other clients that are doing research with smaller universities. And so can you talk to our audience about the value of why you'd want to partner with a university? And then, speaking of value, let's talk dollars and cents, round numbers.
So we have several clients that are trying to show the impact of their solution in schools. And if in the original ESSA program that the government passed, there was levels of impactfulness that would show how a company is impacting learning. And so that was the start of this. So some would do a case study. So you may do your own survey within the district or within the school that you're doing a pilot program with. But what we found is that in order to be the most effective and to show how your product can be, or your solution can be successful in a school, is to partner with a school of education. It could be Northern Illinois University, it could be the University of Arkansas, it could be Johns Hopkins, but ultimately working with them to show the impactfulness of the learning solution that you're offering. And what that does is really help you write real white papers for the marketing and sales team to use, so that when you're going outside of California or you're going outside of Illinois or Virginia, you can show with confidence that your solution will work in the classroom.
Talk a little about the nitty-gritty of what you're suggesting here. Understand the impact for the company. I get that. Talk about the nitty-gritty, and of course you can paint around, but talk about how much something like that costs. And then talk about how you select the school and which schools you should select.
Well, I think everybody really needs to look at who their most likely customer is these days. With the number of solutions that are out there, the noise is incredible. And so school administrators are hearing from hundreds, thousands of different solution providers. So know who your likely solution, or how your solution is going to work in which kind of classroom. If it's a Title I school or if it's a suburban school, whatever the case may be, make those decisions early on. Focus is what we talk about a lot. But when you're working on a project like this, I would say, you have those relationships with the schools of education. And all of us who are in this industry know tons of teachers, know tons of administrators, and even for early stage entrepreneurs, they know teachers from some. So where did you get your degree? Did you get it at National Louis University, which is a great teachers college in the Chicago area? And if they did, go and talk to those people at that school, at that university, in the School of Education, and find out who is doing research on the effectiveness of reading, the effectiveness of math, the effectiveness of STEM products, and start those conversations there. In most cases, if you're working with a Tier 1 university like Stanford, like Johns Hopkins, these research projects are going to cost, $30,000 or more. If you're looking at, maybe the Northern Illinois National Louis University, something like that, certainly there are costs that are going to be had for this, both by the university side and for the school that you're working with. So you can expect, anywhere at, $10,000, $20,000 on those kinds of costs on that. But ultimately, you have to, think about what the logistics are going to be about that. You have to get an MOU. You have to get all those kinds of things signed by the school, by the university, so that they can quote your kids that are using the solution in the classroom. You want them to use video outtakes of those kinds of things, which again will help you in the sales process further down the road.
So what's the outcome, the physical outcome that could be expected? Data, video, what should somebody expect?
I think you can, Josh, you can look at how we consume things these days. Teachers and administrators are no different. They may want it in a video, in a 3-minute video, to show how the effectiveness of your solution worked in a certain district or in a certain school. Or they may, be able to digest that information in a 10-page white paper that you do that. But ultimately, I think that you're going to want to have that data presented in multiple ways, so that your salespeople, so your marketing team, and your customers can use that in making decisions.
Gotcha. In terms of the work that you do, and you've done this for a few years, I want to hear from you about a success story, and then I'm going to ask you the opposite, about a company that did things right in your eyes. And then we'll talk about the opposite. You don't have to name names, of course.
So, I'll give you a good example. We have a current client right now that they are a startup. The founder and his co-founder, they have a great assessment tool that supports CTE programs in high schools and community college and even down into the middle school grades. And they have taken the ability to listen to their customers. So through a early survey, market survey, that they wanted to hear what customers thought about CTE, what they thought about creativity, what they thought about these kinds of things, that soft skills that weren't necessarily taught on a regular basis in schools, and really took that and ran with it. They did things like with webinars to drive lead generation, and the ability to get schools and school districts to raise their hand without having a salesperson or a person like you or me to go out there and get new business for them. They were able to do that through things like webinars, through speaking at conferences, that kind of thing, to really drive the point that they're listening to customers. And, as a result, they're going to have 7 to 10 new customers in the coming year where they can drive a paid subscription to their product. So they have, really have taken, from the very start to even now, of looking at listening to the customer, looking at the data, promoting that data, and then using that to build a referral system and a way to get teachers to raise, or administrators to raise their hand to say, I want to use your solution.
Yeah, if it wasn't clear to people why you and I are completely aligned, and certainly not in competition, but believe in some of the same things, is, you just talked about a client of yours that understands who they need to talk to, obviously is by going to conferences, is building their credibility, listening to other people, has a great offer, is testing their messaging by being at conferences, by being out there, and they're being successful. I'm happy to hear about that. Let's go to the other side. Let's go to the dark side. Again, don't name names, but like, what's just one incident or one company where you said that's just the wrong thing to do?
Yeah, I think before this meeting today, I had a meeting with another person in the industry, and we were talking about one of the key things that we run up against is not understanding the market, the education market, and having very preconceived ideas of how it should be, as opposed to listening to your customer, and then not planning. We probably both have clients that are well-intentioned, but they have an engineering background or they have a finance background, and they have unrealistic expectations for the company that they're running as well as for education. Yeah. So and on the finance side, I have to say, education is an interesting industry to work in, because you're not going to make one-call closes for the most part. That it's going to take building that relationship, having those referrals, and surrounding your customer with a feeling that a supportive feeling that they can trust you, that this solution is going to work. It's not going to happen in one call. It's not going to happen in 2 calls for most of the time. It's really building that, and if you can't have the runway financially, and if you don't have the ability to listen to your customer, and not necessarily the ability, but just the ability to think outside the box for that.
Yeah. The other thing you need to have, as you talk to me about this, I'm going to cuss. You got to have some fucking courage.
Yes.
Because the way you put it just now, it does not sound easy. It sounds very gratifying when you get your results, but it is not easy.
You got to be
committed.
Right? Yeah.
Okay, that's another word, another C word.
Yeah.
Committed.
And I think that having, I've seen the best of these kinds of things of investors coaching their founders to not get discouraged because of this, because it is not easy, but it is, if you're committed to education, if you're committed to breaking through with innovative ideas, it takes courage too.
Yeah. Thank you for using the word breaking on Breaking the Grade. Ding, ding, ding. If we were in a studio, we wouldn't be sitting underneath the sun.
Exactly.
We wouldn't have a helicopter overhead. We wouldn't have a bell going off by some bus. But thank you for using the word breaking. And the last thing I wanted to mention is you talked about your client, and I appreciate you being very honest. And the fact that you said that they will have 7 to 10 new clients next year, which I know, having been in the after-school space, and I had to hit singles because there was no RFP. I couldn't get a school district, so I had to hit singles. So getting 7 to 10 new schools was great. But to your point about being realistic, that's a great fall session. 7 to 10 schools.
Yeah, that's above and beyond. If they can get, as you said, singles 3 to 5 would been, they would have been happy with that.
Yeah. So being realistic with people that 7 to 10 is great. As we close this up, having an opportunity for you to coach companies, what would be the one thing you would tell founders in the education space who are struggling right now?
We talk a lot about, I can tell you, and you've been in this industry a long time as well, we can tell you a lot of anecdotal kind of stories about how to succeed. What I really want people to look at is the data. And they can see every day the number of emails that administrators receive, the time that classroom teachers are putting into the work that they do. Anything that you can do to make your solution a must-have solution versus a nice-to-have solution is where you got to be. And use the data to make the point there. And if you can do that, it won't matter whether you have, if they give the objection, well, we don't have money. If it's a needed solution, they'll find the money for you.
I'm in a very hockey mode. We're just a couple days removed from Alexander Ovechkin, the great Washington Capital, from breaking Wayne Gretzky's record. And in hockey, you talk about going where the puck is. And that sounds like what you're talking about here. Well, I'm happy to be sitting here with you at ASU GSV. And from here, I'll tell you where we're going to go, which is to a happy hour with a bunch of our other colleagues. It's a happy hour I'm co-hosting with some friends. And then we're going to go over to a happy hour. And then what's on the agenda for you later this afternoon so people understand the magnitude of this conference?
There'll be a few thousand people on the deck of the USS Midway later after our happy hour, and having dinner at another huge event that's here. And as you know, every conversation that you have, can net you a relationship down the road. And I think it's always important to think about who you're networking with, plan who you're networking with, and making sure that you're offering some value in the end for those people.
And you two the words I want to key in on is that you talked about net a relationship, not a contract, and you talked about giving value. And when you talk about relationship building and when you talk about giving value to people in a situation like this, it will come back to you one way or another. So I appreciate the fact that you and I got a chance. Well, we met at South by Southwest, and now we're here at ASU GSV. We're going to do some work together, which is going to be exciting. I bet we've got Mexico in our future. I'll be in Chicago in May. So the world is our oyster. And thank you very much for being on Breaking the Grade and everything you do for the people that are in my audience and not an easy space, and you were very honest with people. And so it should give them confidence, but also know that they need courage.
Well, thanks, Josh. I appreciate it.
Thanks for listening.